Rainwater dripped from broken steel beams above the old Liverpool warehouses, tapping against puddles like slow clock hands. The docks had been mostly abandoned for years, but the streets around them still breathed after midnight. Drug runners moved through the alleys. Vans arrived without plates. Men exchanged envelopes without speaking. Everyone watched everyone. Nobody trusted the police anymore, and the police barely trusted themselves. Rumors spread faster than sirens in the docklands, especially when rival crews started fighting over territory, money, and shipments arriving through channels. Malik Turner pulled the hood of his red sweatshirt tighter around his face as he stepped out of Warehouse 14. His pulse still felt uneven after the meeting inside. Marcus Vale's men had searched him twice before letting him enter, and the tension in the room had nearly suffocated him. "You switching sides again?" one of them had asked. Malik laughed nervously at the time, but the question stayed with him long after he left. The cold wind rolling off the canal carried the smell of oil and rain. Malik shoved his hands into his pockets and walked faster toward the main road. He kept checking behind him. A black car had passed twice already. Weeks earlier, Malik had started quietly running packages for another dealer operating south of the river. It paid better. Fewer risks. At least that was what he told himself. In Liverpool's underground network, loyalty mattered more than money, and men disappeared over smaller betrayals. A woman smoking outside a shuttered repair shop noticed Malik pause beneath a flickering street lamp. She later told police she remembered the red hoodie because it looked too bright against the darkness. The van appeared without warning. Its headlights stayed off as it rolled beside him. Two masked men jumped out. One grabbed Malik by the neck while the other slammed him against the side door hard enough to shake the vehicle. Malik tried to scream, but a gloved hand crushed against his mouth. "Wrong move, lad," one of them whispered. The woman across the street froze in fear. She watched Malik kick violently as the men dragged him inside. Then the van disappeared into the rain before she could even reach for her phone. By morning, nobody in the district wanted to discuss what they had seen. Detective Naomi Reeves stood inside the overcrowded police station staring at Malik's missing person file with visible frustration. 26 years old. Prior arrests. Suspected narcotics distribution. No stable address. The case had already been pushed toward the bottom of the pile. "Gang stuff," her superior muttered. "Probably hiding somewhere." Naomi disagreed immediately. People hiding voluntarily did not leave phones smashed beside canal water. They did not vanish hours after private meetings with violent dealers. And they certainly did not disappear while half the neighborhood suddenly became too nervous to speak. As evening settled over the city again, Naomi replayed nearby security footage collected from traffic cameras and warehouse entrances. Most clips showed nothing except rain and empty streets. Then one video stopped her cold. The footage came from a storage facility 3 miles from the docks. A metal door opened underground. Two masked men dragged Malik into frame. Still alive. Still wearing the red hoodie. His wrists were tied to a chair beneath a dim basement light. Naomi replayed the basement footage 3 times before calling anyone else into the room. Malik's face looked swollen beneath the hanging light bulb, and whoever recorded the video had deliberately angled the camera low enough to hide the surroundings. No street signs. No windows. Nothing useful. But Naomi noticed one thing. The chair Malik sat in carried faded blue paint across the armrests, the kind commonly used inside old shipping warehouses near Liverpool's northern docks. It was not much, but it was enough to convince her the kidnapping had been organized carefully, not committed by desperate addicts or reckless teenagers. One name kept surfacing in every report she opened. Leon Mercer. Leon operated differently from most dealers in the city. He avoided flashy cars, avoided social media, and rarely touched drugs himself. He preferred quiet restaurants, private meetings, and expensive tailored coats that made him look more like a businessman than a criminal. People working beneath him feared disappointing him more than they feared prison. Inside a dim office above a closed boxing gym, Leon calmly listened while one of his runners explained how Malik had recently started carrying packages for Marcus Vale's organization. "He crossed over 2 weeks ago," the runner said nervously. Leon leaned back in his chair without reacting. "And nobody thought to mention it sooner." The silence answered him. A faint smile appeared on Leon's face, though there was nothing warm about it. He treated conversations like calculations, measuring weakness in every pause. To him, loyalty was currency. Betrayal deserved punishment. Marcus never changes, Leon finally murmured. Still stealing things that don't belong to him. The hatred in his voice sounded old. Personal. Rumors about Marcus Vale moved through Liverpool like ghost stories. Some claimed he once drowned a man in canal water over missing cash. Others insisted he had former police officers protecting his shipments. Naomi heard his name repeatedly during interviews, yet nobody described him the same way twice. By the time she finally located a recent photograph, Marcus already felt less like a man and more like an approaching storm. She found another connection while reviewing archived narcotics investigations from years earlier. Leon Mercer and Marcus Vale had once worked together. The files described them as partners controlling distribution routes around the docks nearly 8 years earlier. Then suddenly the partnership collapsed after a violent robbery left 3 men dead and millions missing from a shipment arriving through the port. No witnesses ever cooperated. No charges stuck. After that, the city split into territories. And the killings started. Near midnight, Naomi received reports of a disturbance at a nightclub called Halo Room near the waterfront district. By the time she arrived, security guards were dragging bleeding men onto the pavement while terrified customers poured into the street. Inside the club, broken glass covered the floor beneath flashing red lights. Marcus Vale stood near the center of the chaos. He looked older than Naomi expected, broad-shouldered and sharply dressed, with blood running from a cut above his eyebrow. 2 men held him back while another lay unconscious beside overturned tables. "You tell Mercer this city's not his," Marcus shouted toward someone disappearing through the rear exit. "Not anymore." The entire room fell silent when Naomi approached. Marcus looked directly at her without fear. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Then he smiled slightly. "Detective," he said calmly, "you're already too late." Hours later, while Naomi sat reviewing witness statements inside her car, an unregistered burner phone vibrated in her coat pocket. A video message had been sent anonymously. Malik appeared on screen, trembling violently, his mouth bloody and eyes full of panic. "Please," he whispered toward the camera. "Tell Marcus they got the wrong." A hand suddenly grabbed his hair off camera. Somewhere, Malik could be heard screaming uncontrollably tonight. Then a cold voice whispered beside the microphone. "Tell Marcus this is only the beginning." The voice in the video stayed inside Naomi Reeves's head long after the screen went black. By sunrise, officers were tracing the burner phone through nearby towers while Naomi searched deeper into Liverpool's organized crime files. Every road kept circling back toward Leon Mercer and Marcus Vale, but another name had started appearing beside theirs repeatedly. Ethan Cross. The basement holding Malik smelled of damp concrete, bleach, and rusted pipes. No clocks existed there. No windows. The lights remained painfully bright during the day and almost completely dark at night, making sleep impossible. Whoever built the place understood exactly how to break someone slowly. Malik sat tied to the chair wearing the same red hoodie, now stained with sweat and dried blood. His wrists burned against the restraints every time he moved. At first he screamed constantly. After 2 days, he stopped wasting energy. That frightened him more. Heavy footsteps echoed downstairs. Ethan Cross entered carrying a tray containing water, cold chips, and painkillers still sealed inside plastic wrapping. Unlike the others, Ethan never wore a mask around Malik anymore. He looked ordinary enough to disappear in any crowd. Shaved head, grey jacket, tired eyes. "You should eat," Ethan said calmly. "Makes things easier." Malik stared at him silently. Ethan placed the tray nearby and crouched beside him. "You know what Marcus did with the shipment money?" "I don't know anything," Malik whispered. "That's the problem." Ethan almost sounded sympathetic. "Leon thinks Marcus trusted you more than the others." Malik shook his head desperately. "I just moved packages." For several seconds Ethan said nothing. Then he smiled faintly. "You know what people misunderstand about fear?" he asked softly. "Everyone thinks screaming is the worst part. It isn't. The worst part is waiting quietly before something happens. He untied one of Malik's hands just long enough for him to eat, then secured it again with practiced precision. Every movement felt rehearsed, methodical. This had happened before. Elsewhere in the city, Naomi uncovered reports tied to Ethan Cross stretching across northern England. Missing addicts in Manchester. A vanished nightclub bouncer in Leeds. An unsolved kidnapping near Sheffield involving a warehouse with bleach-covered floors. No convictions. No witnesses willing to testify. But Ethan's name floated through every investigation like cigarette smoke nobody could clear away. Naomi pinned photographs across the incident board while rain hammered the station windows outside. Her instincts told her Ethan enjoyed captivity itself. Men like that did not work alone for long. They found powerful people willing to use them. Meanwhile, Leon Mercer sat inside a quiet restaurant overlooking the river, speaking calmly into a burner phone. "There's a shipment moving through Dock 7 tonight," he told the anonymous contact. "Marcus's people are handling it." The information was completely false. Leon ended the call and sipped his drink slowly. Across from him, Corey Bennett shifted nervously in his chair. "You're feeding police his roots now?" Corey asked. "I'm feeding Marcus pressure," Leon corrected. "Pressure creates mistakes." Corey looked unconvinced. "And Malik?" Leon's expression hardened immediately. "Malik matters because Marcus thinks he matters." That answer chilled Corey more than shouting would have. Back inside the basement, Malik listened carefully whenever footsteps approached overhead. Sometimes he heard multiple voices arguing upstairs. Sometimes only silence. Hours blended together until he could barely tell whether he had been captive for days or weeks. Then one evening, Ethan entered carrying an old photograph. 3 younger men stood smiling beside shipping containers near the docks. Leon, Marcus, and another man Malik did not recognize. "Everything started there," Ethan said quietly. "Millions vanished after that night. Bodies too." Malik looked up weakly. "Why tell me this?" Ethan leaned closer until Malik could smell cigarette smoke on his clothes. "Because somebody is lying," he whispered. "And Leon thinks Marcus buried the truth with the money." Ethan switched off the basement light before leaving. Darkness swallowed the room completely. For several minutes Malik heard nothing except his own breathing. Malik froze against the chair, realizing with terror that he had never been alone down there at all, and whoever was hidden nearby sounded injured, exhausted, and terrified. Then suddenly, somewhere behind the concrete walls, another prisoner began crying. The crying behind the basement wall continued long after Ethan's footsteps disappeared upstairs. Malik pressed the side of his face against the cold concrete, trying to hear more clearly. The voice sounded weak, almost childlike from exhaustion. At one point he thought he heard someone whispering for help, but the sound quickly dissolved into muffled sobbing. For the first time since the kidnapping began, Malik understood something worse than fear. There had been others before him. Across Liverpool, Naomi Reeves sat inside her car outside a decaying apartment complex near Kensington. Rain streaked across the windshield while officers waited nearby. The latest phone records recovered from Malik's damaged mobile had revealed repeated contact with a woman named Eva Sinclair. 3 calls. 11 messages. All deleted shortly before Malik vanished. Naomi climbed the narrow stairwell and knocked twice. Several locks clicked nervously from inside before the door finally opened halfway. Eva Sinclair looked exhausted. Her blonde hair hung messily around her face, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Pill bottles cluttered a nearby kitchen counter beside overflowing ashtrays. The apartment smelled of smoke, wine, and isolation. "You police?" Eva asked quietly. Naomi nodded. "We need to talk about Malik Turner." The fear in Eva's expression appeared instantly. She stepped aside without another word. During the interview, Eva barely maintained eye contact. Her hands trembled constantly, either from anxiety or withdrawal. Naomi noticed old bruises fading along her wrist, though Eva quickly hid them beneath her sleeves whenever questioned. "I barely knew Malik," Eva lied softly. Naomi placed printed phone records onto the table. "You contacted him repeatedly before he disappeared." Eva stared at the papers silently. Then she swallowed hard. He was scared, she admitted. Said people were watching him. Who? Eva hesitated too long. Naomi leaned forward carefully. Marcus Vale. At the sound of Marcus's name, Eva visibly tensed. Their relationship had once consumed Liverpool nightlife headlines years earlier. Marcus brought her into expensive clubs, luxury apartments, and private parties guarded by armed men. From the outside, it looked glamorous. Inside, it became suffocating. Control disguised itself as love until Eva no longer recognized the difference. He thinks everybody betrays him eventually, she whispered. Naomi studied her closely. And did you? Eva laughed bitterly at that. The answer emerged slowly through fragments of memory and pain. Before Marcus, Eva had been involved with Leon Mercer. Back then Leon still smiled naturally, before the violence between him and Marcus poisoned everything around them. Eva described Leon as calm, intelligent, dangerously persuasive. He made you feel chosen, she said quietly. Like he understood every broken thing about you. What happened? Marcus happened. The triangle between them had destroyed more than relationships. Old loyalties collapsed after Eva left Leon for Marcus during the years when both men still worked together. Soon afterward came the missing shipment, the murders, and the war dividing Liverpool's criminal network. Naomi left the apartment convinced Eva knew far more than she admitted. Elsewhere, Marcus Vale's paranoia was beginning to infect everyone around him. Inside an abandoned garage near the docks, two of his own runners knelt bleeding beside tool cabinets while Marcus paced furiously between them. You think police suddenly know our routes by accident? Marcus shouted. Neither man answered. One already had a swollen eye nearly closed shut. Another struggled to breathe after repeated punches to the ribs. Marcus grabbed one violently by the collar. Who's talking to Mercer? I swear nobody. Marcus slammed his head against a metal shelf hard enough to scatter tools across the floor. Fear spread through the room instantly. Even Marcus's closest men avoided eye contact now. The pressure from Leon's moves, police attention, and Malik's disappearance were slowly crushing the organization from inside. Late that night, Eva returned home after buying more pills from a nearby pharmacy. The hallway outside her apartment stood empty. At first she noticed nothing unusual. Then she saw the envelope resting against her door. No stamp. No writing. Her hand shook as she opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. Malik appeared unconscious on a dirt floor, blood running down the side of his face. Beside him sat a freshly dug grave beneath hanging basement lights. On the back of the photograph, someone had written 3 words in black marker. You warned nobody. Eva barely slept after finding the photograph. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Malik lying beside the open grave beneath those basement lights. By morning, the image already felt less like a threat and more like a countdown. Someone wanted her afraid. Someone wanted Marcus unstable. And it was working. Across the city, preparations for Malik's execution continued with frightening precision. Leon Mercer stood over a large canal map spread across a wooden table inside an abandoned shipping office. Red markings covered escape routes, police access roads, surveillance blind spots, and abandoned tunnels beneath the docklands. Weeks of planning had transformed revenge into a military operation. Ethan Cross leaned against the wall nearby cleaning a shotgun methodically. The barge gives us clean sight lines, Ethan said. If Marcus's people arrive from the north entrance, we push them toward the warehouse choke point. Leon nodded calmly. And the cameras? Already tested. Several corrupt dock workers had been bribed to disable security systems near the canal district during certain nighttime hours. Storage buildings scheduled for demolition provided perfect temporary hideouts. Unregistered vehicles were hidden across multiple escape routes. Leon had spent weeks preparing every detail carefully. Because this execution was never only about Malik. It was about humiliating Marcus Vale publicly. Leon wanted the city watching while Marcus lost control of his territory, his reputation, and eventually his organization. Fear mattered more than murder in Liverpool's underworld. Public fear built empires. Corey Bennett sat silently near the corner of the room listening to the discussion with growing unease. Unlike Ethan, Corey had never enjoyed violence. He originally joined Leon's crew for protection and money, not kidnappings and executions. You really think Marcus comes himself? Corey asked carefully. He'll come, Leon replied. Pride always brings men like him back. Corey hesitated before speaking again. What if civilians get caught there? Ethan laughed softly without looking up from the shotgun. Wrong district to worry about innocence, he muttered. But Corey could already feel things spiraling beyond control. More armed men were being recruited daily. Vehicles moved constantly between warehouses. Rumors spread through the streets about a major retaliation coming soon. Everyone seemed nervous. Desperate men made mistakes when fear entered the room. Even Leon appeared increasingly irritated by Ethan's behavior. Later that evening, Leon found him alone downstairs inside the basement holding Malik captive. Ethan stood watching Malik silently from the shadows while the prisoner drifted weakly in and out of consciousness. Bruises covered Malik's face now. The untouched grave still sat nearby beneath plastic sheets. You're enjoying this too much, Leon said coldly. Ethan turned slowly. Fear keeps people obedient. No, Leon replied. Fear keeps people reckless. For several seconds tension filled the basement. Ethan respected Leon, but there was something unstable hiding beneath his calmness now. Something Leon himself no longer fully controlled. Upstairs, Malik heard fragments of their argument through the ceiling. Names surfaced repeatedly. Marcus. Shipment. Money. Revenge. None of it made complete sense. Meanwhile, Naomi Reeves finally caught a break in the investigation. Technical analysts traced activity from several burner phones to an industrial canal zone north of the city center, an area filled with condemned warehouses awaiting demolition. The district contained dozens of abandoned structures, underground utility tunnels, and unused loading docks hidden beside dark water. Perfect for staging an execution. Naomi drove through the district just before sunset, studying rusted fences and empty buildings while cold wind rolled across the canals. Most places looked abandoned, yet she noticed fresh tire tracks cutting through muddy ground beside one warehouse entrance. Someone had been there recently. Back at the station, Naomi requested immediate warrants for multiple locations connected to Leon Mercer's associates. Her superiors refused. Not enough probable cause, one officer argued. We have kidnapping evidence, Naomi snapped. We have assumptions. The delay infuriated her. Every instinct told her Malik was running out of time. Elsewhere, Marcus Vale's organization was collapsing under paranoia. Inside an empty nightclub after closing hours, Marcus gathered several crew members beneath flashing maintenance lights. Nobody spoke. Everyone understood what was coming. A young runner named Tyler stood trembling near the center of the room while Marcus stared at him silently. You spoke to police yesterday, Marcus finally said. Tyler shook his head immediately. No, I swear. Marcus pulled a pistol from his coat. Panic spread instantly across the room. I never betrayed you, Tyler whispered desperately. Marcus stepped closer until the gun pressed against Tyler's forehead. Everybody betrays eventually, Marcus said quietly. The gunshot echoed through the nightclub like thunder. The gunshot inside the nightclub spread through Liverpool before sunrise. Tyler's body was discovered still kneeling beneath shattered neon lights, and word quickly reached every crew operating near the docks. Marcus Vale was losing trust in everyone around him. Fear infected his organization faster than loyalty ever had. Leon Mercer heard about the execution while reviewing camera equipment inside the canal warehouse. Good, he said quietly. Panic makes people predictable. The warehouse itself looked like a forgotten piece of the city. Rusted chains hung from steel beams above dark canal water while abandoned barges drifted outside against the docks. Temporary floodlights had been installed beside a raised platform overlooking the canal. Leon intended the entire thing to feel symbolic. Not merely murder. A message. Two men tested recording angles while Ethan cross-checked weapons stacked inside crates nearby. Shotguns. Pistols. Spare ammunition. Escape bags. Everything sat arranged with military precision. Corey Bennett watched silently from the edge of the room. "This is insane," he muttered finally. Ethan smirked. "You nervous about cameras?" "I'm nervous because this stopped being about business days ago." Leon turned toward him calmly. "Business is exactly what this is." Then he pointed toward the platform near the canal. "People obey fear. Tomorrow night every dealer in this city learns what betrayal costs." Downstairs beneath the warehouse, Malik barely recognized himself anymore. His lips were split open. One eye remained swollen nearly shut. Sleep deprivation and fear blurred reality together until hours felt meaningless. Even breathing hurt now. Ethan entered carrying a camera. "Time to talk," he said. Malik immediately shook his head weakly. "Please." Ethan ignored him and positioned the camera carefully across from the chair. Bright lights flooded the basement while Corey stood near the doorway looking visibly uncomfortable. Leon stepped into frame moments later. "You're going to tell the truth," Leon said calmly. "I don't know anything," Malik whispered desperately. Leon crouched beside him. "You're going to tell people Marcus Vale ordered this entire situation. You're going to say Marcus abandoned you after using you for shipments." Malik stared at him in disbelief. "And if I don't?" Ethan answered before Leon could. "Then the grave upstairs stops being decorative." Corey looked away as Malik finally broke down crying. The recording lasted nearly 20 minutes. Several times Malik stumbled over words through panic and exhaustion, forcing Ethan to restart the video repeatedly. By the end, Malik sounded hollow, emotionally destroyed. Leon reviewed the footage afterward with quiet satisfaction. Once leaked online, it would spread across encrypted forums and gang channels within hours. Rivals would see Marcus losing control publicly. That humiliation mattered more to Leon than the killing itself. But Corey could barely stomach what he had witnessed. Later that night he approached Leon privately near the canal entrance. "This goes public, everything explodes," Corey warned. "Police, rivals, everybody." Leon lit a cigarette slowly. "Too late to worry now." "No," Corey insisted. "We still have time to move Malik somewhere else." Leon's eyes hardened immediately. "You're thinking emotionally," he said. "That's dangerous." Corey realized then how completely consumed Leon had become by revenge. Elsewhere across the city, Eva Sinclair sat trembling inside a motel bathroom holding a burner phone tightly in her shaking hands. She had spent hours debating whether to make the call. Finally, she dialed Naomi Reeves directly. "I know where they're taking him," Eva whispered once Naomi answered. Naomi immediately stood from her desk. "Where are you?" "You said protection first." "You'll get it." Eva inhaled shakily. "Old Canal District near Blackwater Wharf. There's an abandoned demolition site beside the water. Leon used to take shipments there years ago." Naomi's pulse quickened instantly. "You're sure?" "Yes," Eva whispered. "And if Marcus finds out I called you, I'm dead." Meanwhile Marcus Vale prepared for war. Inside an underground garage, armed men loaded weapons into vehicles while Marcus studied maps spread across a car hood. Tyler's death had frightened everyone, but Marcus no longer cared. Leon wanted a public message. Fine. Marcus planned to answer publicly. "He'll show himself tomorrow," Marcus said coldly. "And when he does, nobody leaves that canal alive." As midnight approached, Naomi assembled a small team and drove toward one suspected hideout connected to Leon's crew. Rain hammered the streets while distant sirens echoed across the docks. The warehouse door upstairs had been left partially open. Naomi entered carefully with her weapon raised. Too quiet. Too clean. Then she discovered the basement. The chair remained positioned beneath the hanging light exactly as seen in the footage. Restraints still dangled from the armrests. But Malik was gone. Fresh blood dripped slowly onto the concrete floor below. Blood continued dripping from the empty chair while Naomi Reeves stared across the abandoned basement in disbelief. They had moved Malik only minutes earlier. The realization hit her instantly. Leon's crew was already heading toward the Canal District. Every wasted second now mattered. Naomi radioed nearby units while officers searched the warehouse above, but deep down she already knew the truth. Tonight was the execution night. Rain hammered Liverpool relentlessly as dark water churned through the abandoned canal system north of the city. Rusted barges creaked against broken docks while floodlights cut through heavy fog rolling between condemned warehouses. Vehicles began arriving from different directions shortly after midnight. Leon Mercer stepped from a black SUV wearing a long dark coat soaked with rain. Around him, armed men unloaded crates, camera equipment, and portable lights onto the canal platform. Everything had been arranged exactly according to plan. Except the atmosphere felt wrong tonight. Too tense. Too fast. Malik was dragged from another van moments later, barely able to stand. His wrists remained bound tightly behind his back while blood mixed with rainwater running down his face. The red hoodie looked almost black beneath the storm. Corey Bennett walked beside him silently, avoiding eye contact completely. Across the canal, hidden cameras were positioned carefully to record every angle. Leon wanted the footage distributed immediately after the execution. Rival crews, informants, and frightened runners across Liverpool would watch Marcus Vale fail publicly. Fear would spread by sunrise. Leon climbed onto the rusted barge positioned beside the docks and looked across the gathered men. "You know why organizations collapse?" he asked calmly. Nobody answered. Because loyalty became temporary. Because people started believing betrayal carried no consequences anymore. Rain dripped from his hair while floodlights reflected across the dark canal water behind him. Even armed men standing nearby listened carefully when Leon spoke. His voice carried a strange calmness that often frightened people more than shouting. He pointed toward Malik. That boy chose greed over loyalty. Marcus Vale built his empire the same way. Malik tried speaking through exhaustion. "Please. I never." Leon ignored him completely. For years Marcus stole territory, shipments, people. Tonight everyone watching learns what happens to traitors. Then Leon turned toward Ethan Cross. "Prepare it." Ethan smiled faintly before reaching for the shotgun case beside the platform. At that exact moment, Corey noticed movement high above the warehouses. Small blinking lights. Police drones. His stomach dropped instantly. "Leon," Corey said sharply. "We got company." Everything changed within seconds. More headlights suddenly appeared at the far end of the canal road. Multiple vehicles accelerated through the rain toward the docks without slowing down. Marcus Vale's crew. "They're early," one gunman shouted. Panic spread immediately across Leon's operation. Men grabbed weapons while camera operators abandoned equipment near the barge. Leon stared toward the approaching vehicles with visible disbelief. Marcus had somehow learned the exact location. Tires screeched violently as armed men poured from the arriving cars. Gunfire erupted almost instantly across the canal district, echoing through empty warehouses like explosions. Floodlights shattered. Glass burst outward. Somewhere nearby, police sirens screamed through the rain. Leon tried regaining control immediately. "Hold positions," he shouted. "Nobody moves until..." Another burst of gunfire cut him off. Malik threw himself sideways as chaos swallowed the docks. In the confusion, one frightened gunman accidentally loosened the restraints around Malik's wrists while dragging him toward cover. Adrenaline surged through Malik instantly. He ripped one hand free. For one desperate moment, survival overwhelmed fear. Malik sprinted blindly across the rain-soaked barge while bullets tore through metal around him. Corey saw him running and instinctively shouted, "Don't shoot." Ethan ignored him completely. The shotgun blast thundered across the canal. Pellets ripped through railing beside Malik, spraying rusted metal fragments into the water. Men from Marcus's crew returned fire immediately toward Ethan's position, forcing everyone on the docks into deeper panic. Leon grabbed Corey violently by the jacket. "Get Malik back," he shouted. But nothing remained under control anymore. Marcus Vale finally emerged through the smoke and rain near the warehouse entrance, pistol raised while armed men surrounded him. His face burned with fury the moment he spotted Leon across the canal. "You really thought I wouldn't come myself?" Marcus roared. Gunfire exploded again before Leon could answer. Bullets smashed through crates and floodlights while terrified dock workers fled toward side streets. Police drones continued circling overhead, their cameras capturing everything unfolding below. Malik stumbled across the slippery barge deck, desperately searching for escape. Bodies crashed around him. Someone screamed after falling into the canal water. Then Ethan began firing wildly. The shotgun blasts became uncontrolled now, fueled less by strategy and more by rage. Corey tackled one wounded man behind cover while Leon shouted orders nobody could hear anymore through the gunfire. Somewhere inside the chaos, Naomi Reeves arrived near the outer canal road with armed officers moving carefully through the storm. But visibility was collapsing fast beneath smoke, darkness, and rain. Then suddenly came the explosion. A deafening fireball erupted from inside one of the nearby warehouses, blasting shattered metal and burning debris high into the air. The shockwave ripped across the canal docks violently enough to throw men straight into the black water below. The rusted barge lurched sideways. Flames swallowed the warehouse roof while screaming echoed through the storm. Flames consumed the canal warehouse while survivors crawled through smoke, rain, and shattered concrete searching desperately for cover. The explosion had destroyed any remaining sense of control. Men from both crews scattered across the docks, abandoning weapons, vehicles, and wounded allies behind them. Some disappeared into narrow alleyways near the canal roads. Others jumped directly into the freezing water to escape the gunfire still echoing through the district. Naomi Reeves moved through the chaos beside armed officers while emergency sirens screamed closer from every direction. Bodies floated near the rusted barge. Burning debris drifted slowly across the canal surface. But Leon Mercer was nowhere to be found. Neither was Ethan Cross. Malik survived the explosion only because the blast wave threw him sideways beneath part of the collapsing dock platform. Officers discovered him hours later unconscious beside the water, hypothermic and barely breathing. Even then, he refused to speak coherently. Trauma had shattered something inside him. By sunrise, Liverpool woke to news helicopters circling above the canal district. Reporters described gang warfare, mass casualties, and possible police corruption. Social media already overflowed with leaked clips from the unfinished execution recording. Leon's message had escaped anyway. Inside police headquarters, Naomi studied recovered evidence while exhaustion hollowed her face. Multiple vehicles connected to Leon's organization had been abandoned throughout the city overnight. One damaged van particularly caught her attention after forensic technicians discovered something unusual beneath the dashboard. A secondary GPS tracker. Old. Small. Easily overlooked. Naomi stared at the report silently. During the original kidnapping weeks earlier, Ethan Cross had removed the primary tracking system from the van carefully enough to avoid suspicion. But hidden deeper inside the vehicle sat another tracker installed years earlier by a previous owner for insurance purposes. Ethan never found it. That single mistake quietly exposed movements connected to the kidnapping route, warehouse transfers, and eventually the canal operation itself. Police surveillance teams had unknowingly collected fragments of the network for days without realizing how significant the data truly was. One forgotten tracker had destroyed months of planning. Meanwhile, surviving members of both crews desperately tried disappearing before further arrests followed. Corey Bennett boarded an early morning train leaving Liverpool carrying fake documents, stolen cash, and a small handgun hidden beneath his coat. His hands trembled constantly while passengers around him drank coffee and stared at phones, unaware of the bloodshed dominating the news. Every time the train slowed, Corey imagined armed officers storming aboard. By Manchester, police intercepted him at the station platform. Corey surrendered immediately. Hours later he sat inside an interrogation room across from Naomi Reeves, exhausted and emotionally broken. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Smoke stains still covered his jacket from the explosion. Naomi placed photographs across the table carefully. Malik tied to the chair. The basement. The canal barge. How long was he held there? She asked quietly. Corey stared downward for several seconds before answering. About 9 days. The confession opened like floodwaters afterward. Corey described the kidnapping, Ethan's torture methods, Leon's obsession with humiliating Marcus publicly, and the staged confession video forced from Malik. Several times during questioning, Corey nearly vomited while describing the basement conditions. "You could have stopped it," Naomi said finally. Corey laughed weakly through tears. "You think Leon lets people walk away?" Elsewhere across Liverpool, Marcus Vale recovered inside a hidden safe apartment after surviving the canal ambush with minor injuries. 2 of his closest men had died beside him during the explosion, but Marcus barely seemed to care anymore. He only cared about one thing: Eva. One surviving runner nervously handed Marcus a phone containing intercepted police chatter connected to Naomi Reeves. Among the recorded details appeared Eva Sinclair's name tied directly to the canal investigation. Marcus went completely silent. For years he suspected betrayal from rivals, informants, even friends. But Eva's involvement cut deeper than all of them combined. Despite everything between them, part of him still believed she remained loyal somewhere beneath the fear. Now that illusion collapsed. "She told them," Marcus whispered. Nobody in the room answered. By nightfall, armed men loyal to Marcus spread across Liverpool searching apartments, hotels, clinics, and motels connected to Eva's past. Marcus himself drove through the city alone, consumed equally by heartbreak and rage. At the same time, Naomi followed new evidence leading toward an apartment building connected secretly to Ethan Cross. The third-floor unit had partially burned during an apparent electrical fire hours earlier. Smoke still lingered inside the hallway when Naomi forced open the damaged apartment door with officers behind her. The smell hit immediately. Burned fabric. Bleach. Death. Ethan Cross sat slumped against the kitchen wall with a gunshot wound through his chest. Blood covered the floor beneath him while flames had blackened most of the apartment interior. At first the scene looked like suicide. Then Naomi stepped closer. Something felt wrong. She crouched beside Ethan's body carefully before realizing why. Every fingertip had been surgically removed. Noticed. Eva froze when she saw him standing inside the dark hallway. Marcus looked exhausted. Bruises still marked his face from the canal shootout, and dried blood stained the collar of his coat. For several seconds neither of them moved. "I should kill you," Marcus whispered. Eva's hands trembled violently. "Marcus. You told them everything." Tears filled her eyes immediately. People were dying. "They always die around us." The anger in his voice slowly collapsed into something far sadder. Marcus leaned against the wall heavily, suddenly looking older than Eva remembered. "There was a time," he said quietly, "I was going to leave all this behind." Eva stared at him silently. "You remember Spain?" Marcus asked. "That apartment near the marina?" She nodded slowly. "I meant it when I said we could disappear there." His voice cracked slightly. Then the money came. Leon started pushing harder. Everybody wanted more territory. More shipments. "And you changed," Eva whispered. Marcus looked at her with visible pain. "No. I became what this city rewards." Outside, wind rattled softly against the safe house windows. Then suddenly glass exploded inward. A sniper bullet tore through the living room window beside Marcus's head. The sniper round shattered the silence of the safe house with a deafening crack, embedding itself into the wall inches from Marcus Vale's head. Eva screamed and dropped to the floor instantly while Marcus instinctively returned fire through the broken window. His shots tore into the darkness outside, but there was no visible target, only rain, rooftops, and the distant echo of retreating footsteps. Naomi Reeves arrived minutes later with armed units, but the shooter had already vanished into the surrounding housing maze. All that remained was chaos. Glass scattered across the floor like ice. Eva was shaking uncontrollably in the corner of the room, whispering Marcus's name over and over again. Marcus himself stood near the shattered window, breathing heavily, eyes scanning the rooftops for any sign of movement. "He's still alive," Marcus muttered. Naomi didn't ask who he meant. She already knew. Leon Mercer had escalated from criminal mastermind to something far more dangerous, someone orchestrating violence even while missing. The safe house was immediately evacuated. Eva was moved again under tighter protection, while Marcus disappeared into the city before officers could detain him for questioning. By the time Naomi returned to headquarters, the situation had already evolved beyond containment. That same night, another discovery changed everything. Divers assigned to the Canal District recovered something buried beneath decades of sediment and rusted debris inside an old maintenance tunnel system. At first, they thought it was structural remains from collapsed infrastructure. Then the bodies surfaced. 1. Then 3 more. By dawn, the number had climbed beyond a dozen. Each victim showed signs of long-term concealment, carefully weighted and dumped in sections of unused canal tunnels that connected beneath Liverpool's industrial zones. Some remains were decades old. Others were recent enough to still have identifiable clothing fragments and personal items. Among the recovered evidence were phones sealed in waterproof casings, rusted weapons, and encrypted storage devices still partially intact. Naomi stood at the canal edge as forensic teams worked in silence. The water itself felt heavier now. Older. Colder. Like it had been hiding secrets long before Leon Mercer ever rose to power. These aren't random victims, one diver reported. This is systematic. Corey Bennett was brought in again for questioning after the discoveries. The moment he saw the photographs of recovered bodies, his composure broke completely. "I didn't know it went this far," he whispered. Naomi placed a file in front of him. "It goes further." Corey hesitated before speaking again. "If I testify," he said quietly, "I need protection. Real protection." Naomi studied him carefully. "You already have protection." Corey laughed weakly. "Not from them." Because by now, surviving members of both Leon's and Marcus's fractured crews were still active in the city. Fear had not ended with the explosion. It had simply scattered into smaller, more unpredictable forms. People who knew too much were dying quietly. Inside police headquarters, media pressure reached breaking point. Headlines flooded every news channel. Canal massacre linked to police corruption. Bodies found beneath Liverpool, decades of cover-up. Drug network reaches city officials. Naomi watched the broadcasts with growing exhaustion. The case was no longer just about gangs. It had become an exposure of the entire system that allowed them to exist. Meanwhile, Marcus Vale vanished completely after the sniper incident. No confirmed sightings. No phone activity. No recovered body. Some officers believed he fled the city. Others suspected he was hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Eva, however, refused to believe he was gone. "He's alive," she kept repeating inside protective custody. "I know he is." But her voice was fading. She was no longer sure whether she feared Marcus or missed the version of him she once believed in. Days later, during a late shift at headquarters, Naomi received a plain brown envelope delivered without return address or postal record. Inside was a single USB drive. Attached was a handwritten label. Leon Mercer, final recording. The envelope arrived without warning, but Naomi Reeves already knew before opening it that nothing about this case ever came without consequence. She locked herself inside a dim office on the upper floor of police headquarters. Outside, the city continued reacting to itself. News vans circling, phones ringing, officers arguing over jurisdiction and corruption exposure, but inside the room everything felt suspended. Naomi inserted the USB drive. The screen flickered. Then Leon Mercer appeared. He looked different from the man she had seen in surveillance images and fragmented footage. No suit. No controlled expression meant for business meetings or intimidation. Just a tired face lit by a single overhead bulb, sitting somewhere that looked like an empty room or storage cabin. "I imagine by now," Leon said calmly, "you've already built your version of me." Naomi didn't move. "You're wrong," he continued softly. "Or at least incomplete." The recording wasn't edited. No cuts. No dramatic pauses added for effect. It felt like someone speaking after a long silence, not a man addressing the police. Leon leaned forward slightly. "Everything started before Malik Turner was ever born into this mess," he said. "Before Marcus thought he was a king. Before I became whatever you think I am now." Naomi's eyes narrowed as she listened. Leon explained the past with unsettling calmness. Years earlier, he, Marcus Vale, and a third man had operated together in a fragile partnership built on controlled shipments moving through the docks. It wasn't stable, but it worked, until one failed deal collapsed violently during a dockside transfer. A younger man had died that night. Leon's younger brother. The words landed heavier than anything Naomi had expected. It was an accident, Leon said quietly, as if repeating something he had told himself 1,000 times. That's what Marcus called it afterward. Just a mistake during a failed exchange. Leon paused. But mistakes don't bury people in canals. Naomi sat forward slightly, tension tightening her shoulders. Leon's expression hardened for the first time in the recording. After that night, he continued, everything became repayment. Every deal. Every shipment. Every betrayal. Marcus didn't just take my brother's life, he took the version of me that believed people could walk away from this world unchanged. The confession shifted the entire weight of the case. Malik's kidnapping. The execution plan. The canal massacre. Even the psychological manipulation between crews, it wasn't just business or territorial control. It was revenge that had been slowly mutating for years. Leon looked directly into the camera now. You think Malik Turner was random? He asked. He wasn't. He was leverage. He was proof that Marcus could still lose things the same way I did. Naomi exhaled slowly, realizing how carefully everything had been designed. Leon continued. The truth is simple, he said. Everyone involved was already dead the moment we chose that life. I just decided to make sure Marcus felt it in real time. The recording ended abruptly without warning. The screen went black. For several seconds Naomi didn't move. Then alarms began sounding across the building. Multiple simultaneous raids had been authorized based on intelligence extracted from Corey Bennett and recovered data logs. Units were already moving toward remaining safe houses connected to Leon Mercer's network. But Naomi wasn't looking at any of that. She replayed one line again in her mind. Everyone involved was already doomed. By the time she left headquarters, half the city's tactical units were already deployed. One final location had been confirmed through intercepted maritime logs and dock schedules. A cargo vessel preparing for international departure. No official passenger manifest. No declared cargo inspection clearance. Just a ship sitting at the edge of Liverpool's industrial harbour, engines quietly running as if waiting for permission to vanish. Naomi arrived alone against protocol. The docks were nearly empty under the weight of late-night fog. Containers stacked like dark walls stretched into the distance, forming narrow corridors between metal shadows and distant floodlights. The ship loomed ahead, massive, silent, already partially detached from the dock. She stepped onto the loading ramp with her weapon drawn. No officers followed. Something about the case had always been personal, even when it shouldn't have been. Inside the cargo hold, the air was colder than expected. Metal groaned softly beneath her footsteps as she moved deeper into the darkness. The only light came from weak emergency strips running along the floor. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Moving somewhere between the stacked containers. Naomi stopped immediately, raising her weapon toward the sound. The footsteps continued. Unhurried. Deliberate. As if whoever was inside the ship had been waiting for her to arrive all along. The footsteps stopped just beyond the line of emergency lights. Naomi Reeves held her aim steady, breathing controlled, eyes scanning the narrow corridor formed by stacked cargo containers. The ship creaked softly beneath shifting weight, metal groaning as if the entire structure was preparing to move at any moment. Then Leon Mercer stepped into view. No guards. No weapons raised. Just him, standing under the dim glow like he had all the time in the world. You came alone, Leon said quietly. Naomi didn't lower her weapon. So did you. A faint smile touched his face, but it wasn't arrogant. It looked tired, almost reflective. I didn't think they'd let you come this far, he added. I didn't wait for permission. Leon nodded as if that answer made sense. Behind him, deeper in the cargo hold, the faint sound of shifting metal echoed again. Naomi's grip tightened instinctively. You're running out of places to hide, she said. Leon slowly stepped closer, stopping just outside her immediate line of fire. There are no places left, he corrected. There never were. For a moment neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than the ship itself. Naomi studied him carefully now. Not the criminal empire. Not the files or recordings or destroyed evidence. Just the man standing in front of her who had shaped so much destruction while appearing almost calm about it. "Talk," she said sharply. "Tell me where Marcus is." At the mention of Marcus, something flickered in Leon's expression. "He's already here," Leon replied. Before Naomi could react, a loud metallic impact echoed from the far side of the cargo bay. A container door slammed open violently. Marcus Vale stepped out. Blood still stained his coat from earlier wounds, and his face carried the raw exhaustion of someone who had stopped caring about survival long before reaching this moment. His eyes locked immediately onto Leon. "You stole everything," Marcus said quietly. Leon didn't turn around. "You killed my brother." A long silence followed. Even Naomi lowered her weapon slightly, realizing this was no longer a tactical situation. It had become something older. Personal. Irreversible. Marcus walked forward slowly. "I didn't know he was there," he said. "You think I wanted that?" Leon finally turned to face him fully. "That's the problem," Leon replied. "It never mattered what you wanted." The cargo ship rocked slightly as waves struck its hull. Naomi stepped between them. "Both of you, stop." Neither man listened. Leon exhaled slowly, almost amused now, as if something inside him had finally reached its endpoint. "You want truth," he said. "Here it is. None of this started with Malik Turner. Not the execution, not the canal, not any of it." He looked between Marcus and Naomi. "It started the moment we believed we could take from each other without consequences." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You think this is philosophy?" he snapped. "No," Leon said softly. "It's accounting." Naomi noticed his gaze shift briefly toward a nearby control panel mounted inside the cargo wall. A small blinking indicator caught her attention. Backup systems. Navigation logs. Data storage. Leon continued speaking. "That GPS mistake," he added, almost quietly now. "One tiny tracker hidden inside a van none of us bothered to fully inspect. Months of planning, gone because of something that small." He let out a short, almost disbelieving breath. "I still think about that," he admitted. "How something so insignificant ended everything." Marcus moved suddenly. He pulled a gun from beneath his coat and fired. The shot missed Leon by inches and struck a metal container instead, echoing like thunder across the cargo hold. Everything collapsed instantly into chaos. Leon ducked behind crates as Marcus advanced, firing again. Naomi returned fire toward the ceiling to break their line of movement, shouting for both of them to stop, but her voice was swallowed by gunfire and echoing metal. Leon moved faster than expected, grabbing a loose chain and swinging it toward Marcus, forcing him backward into stacked cargo. Marcus recovered immediately and tackled Leon hard into the floor. The impact shook the entire deck. Naomi tried to intervene, but another gunshot rang out somewhere in the struggle, followed by shouting, then silence breaking into fragments of movement and breath. The fight spread deeper into the containers, disappearing from Naomi's direct line of sight. Only echoes remained. Then, 2 final gunshots. Stillness. Heavy. Absolute. The cargo hold slowly settled into silence again, interrupted only by the distant groan of waves against steel. Naomi moved carefully through the darkness, weapon raised, stepping past overturned crates and scattered debris. She reached the ship's outer railing. Rain had started again. Below, the canal water reflected broken city lights. No bodies were visible. Only traces. Blood smeared along the metal edge. And drag marks leading nowhere. By morning, the cargo ship was found drifting slightly off its dockline, completely empty inside. Leon Mercer was gone. Marcus Vale was gone. No confirmation. No recovery. No closure. Only absence. Naomi returned alone to the Canal District later that day, standing where Malik Turner had first vanished into the system that swallowed everything after him. The water was calm now, as if nothing had ever happened. As she looked down into the dark canal, She understood something that no file or confession had ever fully captured. The truth didn't end crimes like this. It only buried them deeper. Somewhere beneath the surface, half submerged in mud and forgotten debris, a phone began to ring.